Yes, indeed. You're tuned into the Ancestral Rock and your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music. Without any further ado, it's an honor to welcome to the WRFG airwaves, Mama Kali Sichen. Mama Kali, are you with us?
Yes. Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
I am. I'm here. We've had some technical issues, and I'm getting feedback right now.
You're getting
Uh,
feedback?
but let us do the best we can. Are you hearing the feedback?
I'm not. I'm not hearing the feedback. Do you have anything else on other than your computer? You have the radio
Oh,
on?
like,
Yeah, I'm not hearing any feedback though. I hear you loud and clear. You're coming through clear.
mm, my phone, maybe my phone is too close. I don't know. Maybe I should turn it off.
Yeah, that's cool. If you turn it off, that's always good too.
Mm,
Uh,
Let me see if I can turn it off.
but in the meantime, in between time, family, just to tell you a little bit about Mama Kali before she, in her own way, will share even more about herself, through our conversation. Mama Kali is a healer. Mama Kali is um, one who many of us knew through her husband, our ancestor, Dr. Kweku Ando. We may have met her through him, through knowing him, but many others know her long before that, and and are really in tune with the fact that she has been a driving force even behind the work that he was able to do in this realm. North Scale Institute. I mean, so much publishing house. As I told her privately the other day, I was in Nigeria and received a book as a gift from Baba Araba Elibonbon, one of the chief priests of the Ifa tradition in Nigeria. And I opened it up, and guess who name was on the cover or inside? Published by North Scale Institute. I'm like, what? So we're talking about influence that reaches far and wide in our world, and we're grateful for her. Grateful to have you on the show with us, Mama Kali. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Still getting that feedback. I don't know what I need to do, but we'll stream through it anyway. Okay?
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not quite sure what that's about, but let's see.
mm.
I don't think the listeners are hearing it though, so that's a good thing.
Okay, so if you're hearing it okay, then I suppose I should just tolerate it, whatever. Let's see. If I see it,
When we take a break, we'll do some troubleshooting and see if we can get it even clearer for you, easier for you.
okay.
Usually,
Now, well, first of all, Kofi, you know, I got a message from you around noon today, although we had communicated by message uh, last night,
yeah,
because I was trying to find out, exactly where you're located. We have a program. I'm looking for a rural um, outlet, but hey, we need it even worse here in Atlanta. Um, this is the Genesis program that Dr. Andrew and I started way back in 2002. And my daughter and my granddaughter are now coming forth to continue the program. Um, all praises to and our ancestor now, Chris Edwards, Farmer Chris, who was so well known here, who was in Ghana, in Elmina or uh, Cape Coast, where he was continuing on the land that Dr. Endo and I actually purchased back in 2005 and started farming. Yes, and so Chris, all praises to him as our ancestor, Chris Edwards, Farmer Chris, who had done such a magnificent job there in Cape Coast.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am. I really wanted, I'm glad you started there, even talking about Chris, because we haven't been on. We've been on the air, and we have reflected on him, in a certain sense. Even did a special tribute to him on Queen Yen's show, The Bridge, which is
right.
tonight. But I haven't had you on, and you were one of the first people we spoke when I heard the news. I was in Guyana at the time, and I had to just pull over the car and call you. But I wanted to, first, of course, publicly, share our condolences again, because I know Chris, just as he is to myself, but even in a more intimate way to you, that's family, and he
Yes,
was on your land, on your land. He spoke so deeply, to the point where he would come to tears at times about his relationship with you all, and particularly in Nana Ando, you know what I mean? He just really loved y'all, in a certain sense. And I know you know that, but really
yes,
gave a lot of thanks in just everyday conversation for the influence that you all had in his life. So I know that, in the physical realm, it's a great loss, and it's also a gain, of course. We've gained a good advocate, in the ancestral realm, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted you to just share with us briefly a few memories of Chris around the time. When do you remember when you met him? Do you remember the time that you met him?
oh, it had to be very close to when the time that we actually came to Georgia,
Mm.
because when we came to Georgia, we had already established contact with many people here simply because I think it was, well, we moved here in 1998 from San Francisco, California, where we had a horticultural plant nursery with exotic plants. And we moved here so that we could have some land to actually work. And it just was like magic to come here. And so we continued our relationship with the people in Atlanta because we had been here several times lecturing and had actually taken people to the botanical gardens, which is on Piedmont, a beautiful botanical gardens. And so we met Chris around that time, maybe around 1999 or 2000. And of course, he was a very young man at that time, but he was always a part of the lectures that we sponsored on Sundays. And we would just sit outside. I just saw a beautiful picture. Oh, it must have been about 25, 30 people sitting in our front yard here in College Park on a Sunday afternoon. And then, of course, we had that spot back at the old house. Do you remember that old house, Kofi? We called it the Carver Center, George Washington. It,
Absolutely,
oh,
absolutely.
you remember that? Okay.
My big daughters, but especially the first two of them, they used to be running
Mhm.
from your house to the Carver Center back and forth doing sprints. So
Right. Oh,
great, great
wow. What
memories,
the
great memories.
times.
And
Oh, what times we had here. We had people coming from out of town, camping out. We did sweat lodges, all of those things. At the same time, we were publishing, traveling, and lecturing, and actually presenting the cosmic prophecies of San Francisco, which, of course, is legendary, especially now that the prophecies are in our face right now. But I want to continue to speak of Chris. He was like my very own son. And I have two daughters. I never had a son. And he was such a dedicated person. I visited him. Well, first of all, he did his training here with Rashid Nouri. And we all, of course, you did, and everybody who's here in Atlanta area pretty much started with Rashid Nouri. And as a matter of fact, Rashid is helping me out now because we're doing some international things, which we've always done too, but
Indeed.
revamping it. But let me speak of Chris. You know, when he passed, wow, it was so hard on me because he was so totally reliable. You know, I mean, a young man who's dedicated to Mother Earth, who's dedicated to bringing us food, who's dedicated to good health and practices that are productive for life. And it was so hard on me. It took me months. I'm just getting to the point where I'm recuperating from the loss because I could totally depend on him to do the right thing in Ghana and never. You say what now?
Oh, I didn't say anything, Mama Kali. Listen.
Oh, I heard something. Maybe it was my own voice. And so when I heard it, I heard from his brother Kenya, who is a chiropractor over there in Lithonia, Georgia, and I just fell apart at that point. But then, of course, you have to wake up and knowing that, okay, there's a farm over there and it has to be tended. So my daughter and I and Edward's family, we all came together to, first of all, to bury him there in Ghana
Mhm.
and to actually get people on the ground taking care of the farm, you see. And that was quite a challenge. But fortunately, there was a young man there who had been working he was Ghanaian, who had been working with Chris all along. And so, he just continued. And so that really, really put our hearts at ease. But there was something that, Spirit was telling me, and I have to pay close attention to Spirit because Spirit is my guide. I am Spirit, and it said, "Look at his name, Christopher. Look at
Mm.
his name, Christopher." So I said, "Okay," and it's Christ, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Christ, and offer, you
Hmm.
know, from another world.
Yeah. He definitely have that energy. He
That
definitely
was
have that crystallized, impurity
Yes,
energy. Yeah.
he
Very
had that spirit from another realm. So he came just for a short time to direct us,
many.
to direct us. Another one of the crucified saviors, as you know, there are so many, the Buddha, the Hindu God, the Christ that of Christianity, all of those. And so he came to give us a message that we are the earth and we must actually honor her. I've never heard anybody speak of the earth in masculine terms,
Never.
always the mother, because she takes care of all of us. What would we do without the mother? We would not be able to stay on this land without the mother. So Chris came just for a short time to lead us, to guide us, to show us the way, how we must not only care for the earth because she cares for us, but we have to put seeds in the ground. We have to feed ourselves. We can no longer depend on the demonic forces who have been feeding us, feeding us mentally, feeding us spiritually, feeding us poison in the name of food. It's not food.
Real talk. We're talking to
We,
Mama Kali Sichen. Mama, if you just pause for a minute, let me identify the station. You
okay.
tune to WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM. This is the Ancestral Rock, and we're getting started with Mama Kali Sichen. Today we talk about when the woman called for justice, when the earth called for justice, when the earth called for war. It's a thing to be considering on many levels. Mama, you mentioned so much that I want to get into today. The prophecies, the war prophecies in San Francisco is one of them, and you kind of alluded to that, when you were mentioning Chris. But first things first, as you were saying, I didn't want to interrupt you. Just taking care of station business. It's the time that we're in. Really, I've just been reflecting a lot on my my very, I would say, shallow knowledge of history. Not deep, 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 deep knowledge of history, but things that I know of in history, of our story, of humanity's trajectory through creation. And we go back and look at certain pivotal moments in time. You can look at like the Dark Ages, or the great dynasties of Kemet, or the Renaissance, or the this, the that, the period of the Ma'afa, which is really still going on. The period of colonialism, whether more modern or ancient. There's these pivotal times, and it feels like when we look back at this time, this is going to be another one of them times that we're walking in right now. That if we look back hundreds of years from now, we'd be like, wow, that time of the turn of the 21st century. When there was the North Scale Institute, and there was all these people, that made a contribution towards the Sankofa process. The people were sleeping, and then the people woke up, and then
Mhm.
another golden age started. So I really would like to, again, you alluded to it in a sense, and I really would like to kind of dive a little deeper into what you mean when you say that we're living in those times of the wall
Of the,
prophecy. I guess
yeah,
first
the cosmic
would be,
prophecies.
yes, man. Like, first of all would be, what are what are those prophecies? What are the prophecies that you're referencing? And then help us to understand how exactly, what do you mean when you say we're living in those times? How can we tell?
Okay. Okay. This goes back to 1995 in San Francisco, where Dr. Endo and I lived about 5 blocks from the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And every morning before we went to work, we had a plant nursery where we had exotic plants. And that was our job. So before we went to work, we would walk on the beach. And the beach had like a great wall that basically it was like about anywhere from about 12 feet to 25 feet tall along the Highway 1, or they call it the Great Highway in San
Yeah,
Francisco.
Pacific Coast
And
Highway.
the Coast Highway, yes. And so we would walk on the beach, and the wall was right there holding the ocean out because La Playa was only maybe 2,000 feet from the beach, and the highway was elevated so that the beach waters wouldn't come into the city. And so we walked there every day, and one day I noticed these huge symbols on the wall. And me being an astrologer, uh, I pay attention to all symbols. That's the first thing that got me. was those huge symbols on the wall. And so we approached the wall to see what it was all about. And we saw all kinds of messages. And in writing on that wall at a
Mm.
very so pretty much high point, but not the highest point on the wall. But we did walk, maybe it's about a mile, mile and a half on that walk on the beach to the close to the water. But then we started to walk closer to the wall
Mm.
because there were messages along that whole mile stretch.
Mm.
And I just had this Kodak camera.
Mm.
That's all. I didn't have any fancy camera at all. So I started taking pictures. And, when we began to study those pictures, well, first of all, we realized that it wasn't an illusion.
Mm.
And it looked like it was graffiti. That's why nobody paid attention to it. But when you got close to it, you would see that within that graffiti there were messages. And then if you were far away from it, you would see huge symbols. And so uh, for from 1995, it was around February of 1995. This is when we started taking pictures, and then up until we left San Francisco, which was 1998, and we came here to Atlanta. Okay, and so we had this collection of photographs, and well, we said, okay, well, we're not going to tell anybody about this. And then because it would look like we were crazy. And so,
So before you go any further, Mama Kali, is that because they were there and then they disappeared? I was going to ask you, is this?
no, they never no, they never disappeared. They changed.
Oh wow,
They changed.
like a blackboard, like the script.
Well, yeah, things would be added and things would be expanded. And I have all those photographs. But we went around the country lecturing. I mean, even let me see, so many in Seattle, Tacoma, Washington, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, Oakland. We went to San Diego, Los Angeles many times, and I know you've heard B, Dr. B. Sirius, talk about the fact that he had come to one of our lectures back in around 1996. And that's when he got the name Dr. B. Sirius, because what was actually emphasized
Mm.
was the star Sirius.
Yes.
That was one of the main emphasis on the wall. That was the star Sirius, the Great Mother, and the constellation of Cephas. Okay, well, see, I can't talk about all of that right now. The time is so limited, but what we decided, okay, walking back, we didn't take the beach. There was a path
Mm.
which was elevated over the beach,
Mm.
and we would walk back home so we could walk faster.
Mm.
And we saw this ibis on the beach.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
See, okay, what's this ibis doing here? Okay, so then we saw it again, and so okay, the ibis of ancient Egypt, and so we said, okay. So if we see this ibis the third time, then that means we're going to have to share what these pictures. We're going to have to tell people
Mm.
about this.
Mm.
And so the third time we saw the ibis, and there were two. There was one woman who was running on the path. It was a path people ran on, and she looked at the ibis, and then there was a man with a dog, and he looked at the ibis, and so did the dog. And so we said, okay, this is the third time. That means that we have to share what we are seeing on this wall. The pictures we know are real because if they weren't there, then we couldn't take pictures of it. It wouldn't come out in this little Kodak camera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, little, I think I might have paid $15 for that Kodak camera, at that time. And so that started our journey of sharing the cosmic prophecies uh, throughout the country. And we went to Texas. We were in, what's the name, Austin, and then San Antonio, and then we were in Atlanta many times. And that's how we establish a connection. Now, we would also take people to the botanical gardens. Here we are in these cities, and our people have never visited the botanical gardens. And their taxes are paying for it. You
Right.
should be able to go to the botanical gardens. And so we began to take the people to the botanical gardens and to New York, the botanical gardens. I remember we had made appointments. We did the cosmic prophecies in San Francisco and I'm sorry, in New York and in Brooklyn several times. We were there. We were at the what was it? The one on 125th Street, that theater
Number
there.
or the
Uh,
Apollo.
no, not the Apollo. It was um, five, five, Victoria Five. That was
Okay.
it. Uh-huh. And so that was way back in the day. And so we did. We had several times there, and then one time we made arrangements to take the people in New York to the botanical gardens of at Bronx in the Bronx. So we made arrangements as the North Scale Institute and prepaid, and there were about 80 people with us on that day. I have pictures of all of this. So there is, it's all there. I'm not pretending anything. And so we show up. Here we are at the New York Botanical Gardens, and there are like 80 people with us. And so they tried to say, well, we don't let people in without you actually reservation, especially not this group of people. I mean, this larger group. I said, okay, well, take a look. We made preparations and we also paid in advance.
Yes.
So the New York police followed us throughout the entire we were there for maybe about 4 hours walking around, and of course Dr. Endo was pointing out the different types of trees, which ones were medicinal, and even some of the weeds that were growing, because the weeds will always come up even through the cement of big cities. Weeds will always come up. And so, the police followed us just like we were going to tear something up, you
Mm.
know. But this is like one of the things that we did. We were in Cleveland, at the Rockefeller place. They have a botanical gardens there. And we went there. We were in Chicago. We were in Detroit. I
So
mean,
all of this was in promotion of what you saw on the wall when you started to spread the word.
yes, we were just
What
sharing it. We
what
were
was
just
what was the
sharing.
reaction like around the
I'm
world?
sorry, say
What
that
was,
again.
what was the reaction like? Did people believe you?
Well,
People take you?
everybody was stunned
Mm,
because at that time we projected it onto these big theater screens.
hmm.
And so you could see all of not only that it was graffiti, but the messages.
Yes. So,
And
Mama Kelly, oh, sorry. It seems like I'm talking over you. It's not my intention. It might be a little delay. Go ahead, please.
and so what people were stunned, and it was a little out there, but they did not reject it
Right,
because at that time, there was graffiti everywhere.
right.
And so people were used to seeing graffiti.
But the
But
mess, but the message is what makes it distinct. It wasn't just someone shouting out their name or something else. So,
absolutely.
so then I guess the $1 million question for us, Mama Kylie, you have us on the edge of our seats. What were some of these messages? Because I'm imagining if it was a message that said everybody drink more water or something like that, or
Oh, no, 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 no. It was a projection of the times to come. Now, the first time that the people who had seen the cosmic prophecies woke up was 9/11.
mm,
9/11 was on the wall.
mm,
And when it happened, we got calls from everybody all over the country. They said, wow, did you see that? It was in the prophecies. You see, but
and what
there,
do you remember what that prophecy said? That particular prophecy you're referring to? Not
oh,
verbatim
okay.
necessarily, but do you remember what?
It was the buildings. There were
Mhm.
all these skyscrapers and everything. And
Mm,
then there was a man lying underneath it, you
mm,
see. And at that time, when 9/11 happened, you remember that there are about 30,000 people who died. Of course, they only claim about 3,000 or so.
mm,
And they had warned all the ish people not to go to work on that day
mm,
because they knew that on 9/11 they were taking that building down.
mm.
Now there's a whole story behind that, but if I get into that,
Yeah.
then
Oh,
we'll take up the next hour.
absolutely
And,
understood. We're just trying to get a picture of some of those things you saw because you were walking with Dr. Ando.
right.
And the other question I wanted to ask real quick before you continue. So this is a spot you all have walked often, and these things just
For years.
for years you walked it, and then all of a sudden one day there's some new
Yeah,
messages.
yeah.
Wow.
Those symbols. That's what pulled us to the wall.
Hmm.
Because as an astrologer, I look at symbols.
And you noticed things, right? What were some of the things, if you can recollect, that you noticed right away that kind of jarred your astrological mind?
Okay. The symbol of Jupiter, the
Mm,
symbol of Pluto, and the symbol of Saturn.
mm, mm,
Okay. And then the celestial granary of the Dogon people of Mali. Now, we had all of that information behind us. We knew that. Okay, but when was it that the grand conjunction of
yeah.
Jupiter
Yeah,
and
Jupiter and
Saturn
Saturn. Yes.
and Pluto?
A
20,
few years
starting
ago.
in 2019,
Yes.
2020, 2021,
Mm,
which changed the world. This is when the so-called New World Order began to try to actually overpower the people and overpower the Great Mother,
mm,
you
mm,
see. But they had been in the plan. I mean, we know about the jab, which you can't mention.
mm,
It's right now it's not as bad, but way back then you couldn't even say anything about the jab, which is was on the wall. I have a picture of that. It was on the wall, but see, even I didn't know what that was then.
mm,
Okay, until it happened.
mm,
Okay, and then there was this rocket that broke up in the middle, and it said, "Feed the hungry, not the arms race."
mm,
And then the other one said, "Where did all the money go?" Okay, so here we're talking about a rocket that has DNA and showing that there is some sort of DNA happening, or some kind of um, you know, nefarious things happening on these rocket ships that are
Mm,
going out into space. But they broke up.
mm,
Many of them broke up, just like all of these rockets that Elon Musk is putting up. They can't, they all bust up before they leave the ground.
mhm,
Now, and then there were these seven entities that were somewhat uh, human, but not human. And it said ozone, They remember that, they have been playing with eliminating the ozone level now for many, many years. Um, if you remember, one of the biggest holes that was ever depicted from Earth, oh, where the holes in the ozone was on over, I think, what's the name of that place up there in Maine, where the bushes came through? Is it? No, it's not Hyannisport. I forget the name of that town where the Bushes had their place up there in Maine. Well, that was one of the first big holes in the ozone there. Okay. And so another one was, okay, so there are these seven entities, which was the G7, and how they were trying to manipulate everything on earth and bring in the new world order. And so and they were strange looking, they didn't look human, which now at this time we realize that perhaps they never were human,
mm,
these entities, because how can real humans do the things that they are doing right right now through Ukraine? People don't know the real story behind Ukraine, and it's not something that we have enough time to talk about, but I got the story. I keep up with all this stuff.
Well, we I want you to touch on that though, if you don't mind, just for a moment. Give us some homework, if you will. Give us some homework so we can study and show ourselves approve as well. We're talking to
Are you
Mama Kali Sitchin.
sure? Are you sure it's safe on this platform?
Oh yes, ma'am. This is listener supported
Okay.
radio. This is listener supported radio. But before you do that, I just gonna say, family, we have about 40 more minutes left in the program. This is what WRFG is all about. It's been about for 50 years. The reason we can have Mama Kali Sitchin unfiltered, unbought, unbossed, all of that. You know what I mean? Nothing, no bridle on her tongue when it comes to speaking the truth and sharing the information. The reason we can do that is because it's listener supported radio. You see? And so we're just having a moment where it's very appropriate to remind ourselves of the beauty of this, what was an experiment, this reality called WRFG radio. One of a kind, not just domestically anymore, really all over the world, especially on the FM dial with strong signals. So those of y'all joining us in the different parts of the world, much love to you. Much love to you. Much love to you. We see you, and we appreciate of you. We're speaking with Mama Kali Sitchin, and Mama Kali is just really sharing with us some of what she and her husband, Nana Kweku Ando, saw on a wall in San Francisco on the beach years ago, and the famous San Francisco wall prophecies. At this point, famous. In many circles, you hear people talking about these and really drawing to them and relating to them, to even help with some navigation of these now times. In many ways, as you say, now time prophecies.
Yes.
So a big up Mama Audrey. When I say now time prophecies, I think of Audrey Scott Williams. We haven't had her on this radio show for years and years and years. But if you're out there, much love to you, Mama Kali. Yeah. So I don't want to get too far off the mainstream, because one thing leads to another when we're talking about this life, this massive web.
Right.
But when you talk about Ukraine again,
Hmm.
what I appreciate, I'm gonna say before I ask you to elaborate, is that there's certain people like yourself who have a way of making things which may seem metaphysical, or just kind of euphoric, or just kind of out there, as you say, very tangible, very practical, and that's why, even as we get into the what can we do about it, what is this that we can do, because you said something while I was thinking something, that listening to you talk, like ultimately these people are fighting against creation. They're attempting
Yes,
to
they
destroy
are.
the natural
Hmm.
order. I was earlier today sharing a young man, big up yourself, Enzi, a young man in our community who makes these Tesla coils. They call them Tesla coils, but they're much more ancient than Nikolai Tesla. But these copper rods that we put into the ground to generate energy to help to invigorate the
Right.
plant, and our Agnihotra, which you know about. And I was just saying, there's no way, there's nothing anyone can do to tell me that with all the sophisticated machinery and contriving and the polluting the whole atmosphere and everything, that there is nothing that the regular everyday people can do. With all these big machines and their big bank and their big finance and to do their nefarious foolishness, I still can't be convinced that regular everyday people like you and me don't have something in our hands, if we knew what we had, that could offset that. It's like saying that they can create a plague that's going to wipe out humanity with no natural recourse. I just refuse to believe that. How do
They,
you think?
they don't have the power, okay? They don't have the power. We have the power. Okay. So I really wanted to say something about Ukraine, but we don't have very much time. And so let me talk about the power.
Hmm.
Okay? Now, they, like you said, they have all these sophisticated uh machines and everything. What I think is a nine of them that Elon Musk sent up there. They just crashed, just like on the wall in San Francisco. They just bust open, can't
Hmm.
even get off the ground.
Hmm.
And then CERN, this particle accelerator they have over there in Switzerland. They
Hmm.
turned it on the other day during the eclipse, and it didn't work.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
All those billions of dollars that they're putting into everything, to try to change time because their time is up. The writing on the wall, the conjunction of Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in Capricorn. Capricorn rules the powers that be. I call them the powers that used to be because they ain't no more.
Shit.
Okay?
You say that again, Mocha.
They ain't no more. And as long as we allow them, and we are allowing them by allowing these so-called chosen leaders of us, they're not our leaders. They are the cronies that have been put in place to keep these demons in place,
Mhm.
to protect the demons from the real people, and we are the real people. We are the chosen. We are. And we keep repeating old history. Do you know what was it called? Revolution, not revolution, right after the Civil War,
Or Reconstruction?
Reconstruction. Do you know what that was? Reconstructing history.
Mm.
And a whole lot of people are getting this. They didn't get it yet. The Dark Ages. Who was out of? Who didn't know what was going on? The Europeans,
Right.
right? And then they called it. You know, then they were awakened by whom? The Moors.
Right.
And they had no idea what was going on. They didn't even know of this hidden place over here, North and South America, the Holy Land. This
Mm.
is the Holy Land. This, where we are sitting is the Holy Land, North and South America. They didn't know about it. Europe,
Mm-hmm.
they just recently, when you look at time, 400 years, 500 years, they just found out about it. And so they wanted to overpower the people and take the land, the blessed land, the Holy Land. Okay? The indigenous people of the Americas were called Indians. But they're not those people that they call Native Americans now. The Indians were copper color. And if you take a bunch of pennies and put them out there in a line, you're going to get every color from almost black to a very light color brown. Just like we, the indigenous people of America. What they call Black Indians now, and trying to deny them this land, which belongs to us. This is our land. This is our land. This is the Holy Land. If you look at Christopher Columbus's own diary, he said he was coming to the Holy Land. And if you read the history of the first explorers who came here, they said in their own writings, this was hidden from us. They said that the people were speaking Hebrew. They called us the lost tribes of Israel. Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew. Now, because our time is so short, I need to say that this eclipse, or series of eclipses, okay? Because the eclipses started in, the ones that came in to announce the changes on this earth. And the final announcement came over the last 7 years. That first one, what date was that? Let me see. In 2017, that first eclipse that came over America, starting in Washington, Oregon, and then came all across America, 2017. Hold on a minute. I think I have it here. Okay, August 21st, 2017, right? Okay. And then last 3 days ago, on the 8th, then there was another one, a total solar eclipse that came through Mexico and crossed that eclipse of August 2017 and made an X. X in the ancient Hebrew was star. Okay? But if you take a look at the annular solar eclipse of October 14th last year, 2023, and then you look at all of them, it pronounces, the fact that the ancient Hebrew, I'm talking about ancient Hebrew, not modern Hebrew, but ancient Hebrew, which was spoken by the indigenous people here in America called Black Indians. Some folk call us African Americans, and most of us ain't even been to Africa. It's not our bloodline. There were some who came over but it is greatly um, uh, because they had to tell another story to disassociate us from the land. This is our land. The copper colored people, called Negro black colored. On my birth certificate, I was called colored. My mama was called colored. My daddy was called colored. That was before Virginia came along, the state of Virginia or the territory of Virginia came along and changed everything. What was that in 2024?
Yeah, Mama
There
Kali,
were no more Indians. They
right.
declared that there were no more Indians. Okay?
I want to ask you about that, Mama Kali. A couple of things. That's something that even often causes debate, amongst
Hmm.
people because of the narrative. And for myself, I know that there's ancestry on the continent of Africa, but even for me, it's a simple thing because it wasn't. It's not that Africa is not the original space where humanity would have emerged from in this time. It's just saying that everyone didn't come on on a slave ship.
Exactly.
Even Ivan van Sertima, they came before Columbus. Details
Right.
about Mansa Musa's expedition. So by the time these first death ships came over here, they would have met millions of indigenous people who were descendants of even Mansa Musa's, expedition east of the Mississippi. It's said that 90% of the folks that were known as Indians, on the east of the Mississippi, by the time these first colonizer ships came, were African people who come from our earlier migration. So to me, it's kind of like what we seem to. I'm just interested. I'm intrigued in what you just shared in terms of the narrative and the reason why narratives are spread by imperialist forces. To disassociate ourselves with our wealth and have us casting at straws, for instance. It's very interesting thing to me. Um, Now, when you talk about the prophecies again, in terms of some of those messages and us living in these times, I know you say you want to talk about the power, tying it into the energy that comes from our mothers, like yourself, because I know that that is another thing that is a significant shift. There are certain mindsets, there are certain ways that of culture that have shifted. I would definitely touch and agree with you in terms of even since that great conjunction a few years ago. One of them is how humanity is starting to look at the mother again through a lot of the colonizers' culture. We were taught to look at mama as the origin of sin, you know, evil and just subservient and
Well,
all.
that's Christianity. That's Christianity. The Christianity is what, and well, let's say the Piscean Age religions,
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, Islam, and Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
They took the mother from the throne and put the father up there. Even said that the father came from the rib. Okay, show me somebody here that came from their mama's rib, or no, their daddy's rib. Show me. But at any rate, now I know that what I just said is very controversial, but there's proof.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Reconstruction was all about. Furnished, uh, it was furnished by those powers that came along in the so-called industrial age, the so-called royal families of Europe, who used to be in power, they aren't anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because the great mother has taken her throne. Now, That is a part of the cosmic prophecies of San Francisco. You see, there were recorded on that wall, all over the wall, amongst all of the messages 104 and 189. Those numbers, 104 and 189. Well, I knew it meant something.
What does it mean?
Well, 104 points to the star Sirius, and 189 points to the Great Mother.
Mm.
Okay? And so in 2017, there was in the Bible. I mean, there are people who don't want to recognize that the Bible is a prophecy. It is. It's an astrological book, and it's a prophecy as well. But we have had these preachers who have been misleading us about what it says.
Right. I mean,
And
I think that's the thing that even when you mention the Piscean age religions, the from what I've seen with my own eyes and studied, it's really what the popular culture has made of them more than the essence. Because the same thing even in Islam, they talk about the throne of God being connected to the cosmic womb, that paradise lies at the mother's feet. So I'm just saying in every tradition there, but there was people who in the Arabs in that time as well, when with the rise of Islam, that were burying their daughters alive. So I wanted
yes,
to really ask you
and
about
they're
that.
still doing that.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that from the perspective of how we navigate this time. How have you been able to navigate in an age of information to filter, discern between disinformation and true information? What is your gauge? What would you suggest to the family out there that is in this time where there's so much? We're at a point now where it's the internet and everything else. There's a information highway for real. It's saturated. How do you separate the noise from the music?
I just speak the truth. And the truth that I understand, and I have been given so much guidance. I mean, the prophecies alone, the prophecies are still speaking.
And
I
what I'm
just got to
asking, I
I
want to
just,
ask in another way. What I'm asking is not how you share the truth, that's clear, but even how do you, and how would you even maybe suggest to younger people who have not developed your process of discerning? Because we're talking about information and misinformation, there's so much.
right.
So that's what I'm asking. How would you suggest that? What are some tips you would give in terms of how to discern between disinformation and information? What's the gauge? That's what I'm asking that you use in order to say,
Okay.
okay, this is
First of
real
all,
food.
you got to cut off ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, CIA. You got to cut all of that off. It's straight up misinformation, disinformation,
Hmm.
straight up. And then you also have a lot of people who have their own agendas, and these are the secret societies, of many of which our own people are a part of, and they don't know. They really don't understand that they are a part of the disinformation.
Mm.
But they are usually the ones that are selected. And I said selected. They are selected to be our leaders, and we look up to them. But they belong to secret societies, the sororities, the fraternities, the Masons, the Eastern Star. I mean, all of those that have been given to us, the indigenous people. And it started way back in the day, during the time of like, what's his name? The guy starting, um, Frederick Douglass.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, a lot of those people, and people don't even know that. What's the guy's name? Uh, um, um, mm, the beginning of the NAACP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he wasn't even an American. He came from the Huguenots. The Huguenots, they were the dark skinned, Jews, or not Jews, I should call them Hebrews from Europe, who got run out of Europe, 1492. They were copper. I mean, they were dark skinned Europeans, and they were the royals. You see, even the royals of Europe were dark skinned people. They would have called them Africans, but they were brown skinned people, and they were ran out of Europe. And including down there in Guyana, where your people are from. Many of the Irish, went to Jamaica and Guyana. The Black Irish, you've heard of the Black Irish. They're real.
Definitely.
Yeah. And what's his name? I tend to forget the names of our those who have been falsely put in front of us as our leaders, and it's upsets so many of our people because they look up to them. But
Mhm.
that first president of the NAACP, he was a Huguenot, Du Bois.
You're talking about WD Du Bois? Yes.
Du Bois, he was a Huguenot. He came from a family of dark skinned Europeans over here. They all came over here, you know, and they were given positions of leadership. They were educated, so called. So we look. If anybody, I'm going to put this book up. Oh, look,
For
here it
those,
is.
yeah, for those that can't see, you listening.
The history of the American Indians, James Adair.
The
The
history of
history
America.
of the American Indians, James Adair, 1700s. He talked about the indigenous people that he met here who were, and according to him, the lost tribes of Israel,
Mhm.
the ancient Hebrews, who spoke not only Hebrew, but they wrote in Hebrew. And there are artifacts that are coming along. They call them the Mississippians. There are artifacts that are being dug up every day with this ancient Hebrew. Okay? The mounds, the mound culture, ancient Hebrew, and so this is what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, and you mentioned Ivan Van Sertima, and he wrote some wonderful books. But did you ever hear Ivan Van Sertima say that he could not talk? He had been muffled
Mhm.
on many subjects, and he knew who we were.
Mhm.
But they told him that if he ever opened his mouth, he would lose his job. He was at Rutgers, one of the Ivy League colleges. That's where I started.
Mhm.
And so he had lived here in America most of his life, and his family was here. He wasn't going to risk his job, so he had to muffle himself about what he knew. Okay. Yes, he did write they came before Columbus because it's true. The Moors were merchants. They had been all over, and they kept the Holy Land secret because they didn't want the Europeans, who were at that time barbarians,
Mhm.
the Vandals. Where'd we get the word vandalism from? you know and even in one of the German museum, there's a very old tapestry, that is depicting the Moors, dark skinned Moors in castles with the barbarians outside of the castles trying to kill them.
Hmm.
See, there's so much that we see when they reconstructed history, they paid people to lie. And then, of course, in the monasteries, they also, the monks, they sat there and rewrote history. You see, but all of this is taken down by the new age. We're into the age of Aquarius. We have left the age of false gods behind us. It's gone, along with all of the lies. But because those people who have all these letters behind their names, because they got those letters behind their names and everybody thinks it's something, you know, they're still being paid by these other people to promote the lie.
Indeed. We're speaking to Mama Kali Sichen. This is WRFG Atlanta. We have about 9 minutes left in the program. So grateful for you coming by today, Mama, and sharing with us. In the time we have left, I want to get forward to the power. Not to say we've been moving away from the power. We've been talking about that all along because information is also power. When I hear you share, I feel like you're giving us a picture of the landscape that we're walking into so that we can know how to navigate. So I want to get forward to some practical steps. As you said, and as we know, we haven't spoken much about that today specifically, but you're an earth steward. You're a healer. You're a herbalist. You're an astrologer. You're an ethnographer. You're an author. You're all these things. So in all those realms, there are practical things that the average person can do without having $1 million bank account. There are
Right.
energies that we can pay attention to. There are rituals, there are practices that we can adopt into our lives. I would like to ask you to share, as a mama, with your children out here, some basic things that we can really do to take full advantage of all of this energy that you're talking about. Babylon has fallen. This is the new world. This is a new energy. It's the age of Aquarius. What are some ways that we can really simply, on a day to day basis, starting from scratch, if we need to, take advantage of these energies that are abounding in the world right now?
Get some seeds, vegetable seeds, put them in the ground. Even if you live in an apartment, get some pots. If you don't have sunshine, buy some lights. Okay? Grow your food, because one of the ways that they are in power over us is that we have allowed them to feed us.
Mm, 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 mm.
Okay? And they're poisoning us every day. They are poisoning us. The water is poisoned. The food is poisoned. The air is poisoned. So, what you have to do is make sure that you eliminate as much as possible the poisons and make it be that food that you can put some seeds in the ground and grow your own. Okay, that's number one. And then teach yourself, listen to those who are talking about, you know, the the truth of the Aquarian age. See, this is they are dissolving. See, the old world has dissolved. Babylon has fallen. The only reason why we see images of it as if it's still here is because we support it. As long as we give our money to those places that and those entities that are stealing from us, America, the United States government corporation went bankrupt in 2019. Why are we still paying taxes? Why is it that the Negro radio station here in Atlanta is promoting getting your taxes paid? Okay. When they are all out of commission. See, we have to learn and not learn from multimedia because the media is lying. They belong to the demons. Okay. And I'm sorry, I never got a chance to talk about Ukraine, which is the story
We we
that's.
we gonna set up something, Mama, where we can have a conversation, as we did last time on Streamyard, and give you the opportunity to plan for that and talk about that because we need to know about these things. We need to know because they're affecting these. There's issues that we need to know about because they have a direct effect on our lives, even in the
Absolutely.
environment we're walking in, even with the whether it's the economic environment, the actual physical environment, the ecosystem, all of that. So we absolutely need to know.
Okay. Well, I'm available anytime. And I know that the Great Mother has given me uh, the opportunity to actually share. And I'm so happy for this opportunity. There are so many of us who are in leadership position who don't know and who have closed their eyes.
Mm,
Okay, because their money is coming from the demons
hmm
and they don't even know they're working for the demons.
hmm
Okay.
Very clear. Very clear. This is Mama Kali Sichen, y'all. Thank you so much, Mama, for joining us this afternoon. We love you. We appreciate love your presence in our world. We honor you, not just with words, but we please give us information, even in terms of how the family can stay in touch with you, support the Genesis Project, which we barely touched on in terms of what's
Mm,
happening on the land in Africa. We have to do part two, but what's happening
yes,
on that sacred land in Africa right now, in Ghana,
yes.
and all those things. Any way for us to get in touch with you?
Okay. To get to the herbs is herbaful.com, herbaful.com. You can go there to access the herbs. My granddaughter is taking care of that now. My direct phone number now is 404-748-2475. Okay. And 404-767-4786. You can leave a message there. I will get back to you. Um, there is another website under construction, but I'm putting another one up, the Shaman's Key,
Yes.
where I hope to actually put up the cosmic prophecies. I can send you a link to what has been done so far with the cosmic prophecies, but that is a story that is unfolding daily, daily. Even I had a dream um, about a week ago where a symbol was drawn in the sand in San Francisco that ended up belonging to, a greater mystery. And so there's just so much. Like I said, those prophecies were for now.
That's it. Well, we're looking. We're grateful to be able to unfold them because I remember one big up Mama Lydia Mena Muhammad. One day she said to me something I never forget. She said that a prophecy that comes through is a failed prophecy because prophecies are here to warn. They're a mercy. So the purpose of them is to get you out the way of something. And that's generally
Let
speaking.
it happen.
So we give thanks, Mama Kali, for you sounding the trumpet as always. Thank you for being with us. We're gonna push out the way and get ready for the next program. Family, take care of yourself, take care of one another. Let's step out the road. Seeing, bless the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Peace. Mm.